Shalom, everyone, and welcome to your 11th day of Biblical Hebrew. Today's guest is the letter Kaf, and Kaf makes the sound of the letter K, as in the word key. So it makes a k sound. Okay, so that's the sound of Kaf. It makes a k sound. Okay, and so the other thing you have to know about the letter Kaf is that it has an alter ego, just like the letter Bet. So yes, Kaf is part of the Bigad Kafat letter. And that's what the K stands for in Bigad Kafat. Okay, so the other sound that Kaf makes is the ch sound. Yeah. That's why I said if you mastered the letter chet, then you will be able to make this sound. You don't actually have to learn two new sounds. You just have to learn that this one makes the K sound, and then this one makes the same sound as chet. It makes the ch sound. Now, the way you can tell these letters apart is, again, by this dot, just like the letter Bet. So the letter Bet has a dot in it as well, and that dot's called a dagesh. So Kaf also has a dagesh in it. And you can think of this dot as like a medicine or something, or like a cough drop, because Kaf over here makes the sound, and it sounds like he has a sore throat or something stuck in his throat. And so when the dot's there, or Kaf has taken his medicine, he now makes the clear K sound, and it's a k sound. So you can use that to help you remember that Kaf has taken his medicine when you see the dot. And when he hasn't taken his medicine, he's going to do a sound. Okay? So that's the difference between the two letters. Okay, so there's something else you have to learn about the letter Kaf. And that is, it has two forms. So the other form is called a Sophite letter. So you can also call it final form. And this is the final form. So this is Chaf with the ch sound. And then this is the final form of that letter. So this letter over here can show up in between the words, like in between a word. But this part of the word this letter will only show up at the end of a word. So this letter will only show up at the end of a word. And that's why it's called final form or Sophite letters, because it's only at the end. And Sophite means like end. So that's why. So it only shows up at the end of a word. And the other thing you should keep in mind is that when it's in this form, it's going to make the sound. So it won't ever make the K sound. It won't make a k sound. It will only make the sound. So when chaf is at the end of a word and it's in this form, it will make a sound. Okay, so this is a chart over here where the letters are side by side. And to remember this letter, you can think of it as having a hinge over here. So this little dot over here is right where the hinge is. And when it turns into this form over here, it will drop down. So this thing like will drop out. So you can kind of see that. So the top part's there, but then this drops out and it becomes long like that. And so you can think of it as it has a hinge. And so this letter is Chaf, and this letter would be called Chaf Sophite. Sophite means like at the end, so it's letting you know what form the letter's in. So we kind of have a different name for it. You call it Chaf Sophite, and this is Chaf. Okay? And what can help you out is this is not an official class, so it's not an official club. It's something I made up. I call it shape-shifting club, because there will be certain letters in Hebrew, not a lot of letters, but certain letters that will change form at the end of a word. And I call them shape-shifting because it's this form and then suddenly it changes into this form at the end of a word. So it's shape-shifting. So I made up this term. So don't ever go and tell anyone that, oh, this is the official name for a shape-shifting. No, it's not. I just made it up, okay? So I just think it's kind of fun to think of them as shape-shifting letters. And you can think of it as these certain letters being part of this shape-shifting club. Okay? So it's not an official term. Don't use it as a technical term. It's just a silly term that can probably be used to help you remember all those letters. Because when you make something funny or silly, usually it can stick in your head. So feel free to make up your own funny things or silly things that will help you remember the letters. Okay, so moving on, we're going to take a look at your first word here, and this is with the letter kaf, the one which makes the k or k sound. And we're going to look at the consonant here, and so this is the kaf, which is why we transliterate it with the k over here. And then we're going to look up, because when you look down, we don't see any vowels here. So we're going to have to look up, and we see a dot. And this dot is called a cholim, and it makes an O sound. So you go k and O, k, O, and then you go ko, which is why you have the K and the O here. So you combine these two sounds and you get ko. And then we're going to look to the next letter, which this letter right here is the letter hey. You should know this letter. This is a letter you have learned before. And it has a gap here, so it makes a h sound like the letter H, which is why there's a H here. And then we're going to look down, and we see two dots here. These two dots are called tsere, and this vowel makes an A sound. A, as in the letter 8. Sorry, not the letter 8, the number 8. The number 8, you have E and I in the number 8. When you're spelling it, and it makes an A sound. So you have the h and the A, and you say hey, which is kind of funny because this letter is, the name of the letter is hey. But now you're making the sound with the h and the A, and you get hey. And then you're going to look to your next letter, and this letter is noon, and it makes a n sound. And yes, this is one of those letters that is a shape-shifting letter. You'll learn about it later. But this is noon, n, and so you get the n sound. And putting all the sounds together, you get ko, hey, n. Ko, hey, n. Kohen. And that's how you get the pronunciation of the word. And so this word means priest or leader. So the way you know the context of this word is if it means leader, it's usually referring to, like, say, the word may be tied to the land. For example, this person was a Kohen in that land, or in the palace or something like that. You can usually tell from that context. It means like a leader of some sort. And if it's tied to religious purposes, such as sacrifices or temples and things like that, then it means priest. So that's usually how you can tell when it means priest or leader. For example, Moses' father-in-law, many of the time in the Bible, is translated as he was a priest in Midian, but it could also mean he was a leader or a chief in Midian. And it doesn't only have to mean priest, because that is tied to the land, and we don't really see much of him or any kind of context of sacrifices, temples, or any kind of service in that way. So the word could be priest or it could be leader. So he could be a priest in the land, or he could also be a leader in the land. We don't really know for sure, and that can be ambiguous, and it's fine. It doesn't make a big deal when you can't tell whether it means priest or leader in that sense. So just keep in mind that this word can have two meanings, because even David, that is King David's sons, were called Kohen. In this word was used for them in the Bible. But we know that David's sons were not priests. They were princes or leaders in Israel, right? So this word can mean two things. Okay, moving on. We have the word, I'm not going to tell you the word yet, but first I'm going to break down the consonants, okay? And this is the letter Tav. It makes a T sound. And so we're going to look down and we see the vowel, and this is a patach, and it makes an ah sound, ah. So you have T and ah, T, ah, and you go ta, ta. And so this is a ta. Now we look over to the next letter, and this is the letter Chaf, which you saw it has no dot. So Kaf did not take his medicine here, so it's going to make a sound like the letter Chet, and which is why over here, so many times when you transliterate Chafs, you put a K and a H together, because usually sometimes people want to differentiate between the Chet and the Chaf when they're transliterating. So I use a K and a H here, and it goes so that's what it means. And this two dots down here is called a shva, or shiva, and it can make a sound, or sometimes it can be silent. In this case over here, it's going to be silent, like how Aleph is silent. So that's why I put this little apostrophe kind of thing over here to tell you that it's silent. So when this happens, what it's saying is that this syllable is closed, which means this letter has to be combined with this. So you go ta, and you get tach, tach. So this is a closed syllable. This is one whole syllable. That's how it is. Shavas usually are there to help you out with syllabification. And so you go tach. Okay, that's the first syllable. And now we're going to look to the next thing. Oh, sorry. I just realized the arrows there. But yeah, we already looked down and saw that. So we're going to move over to the next letter, which is Lamed. And Lamed, you haven't learned this letter yet. It's fine. It makes an L sound. L. That's why there's an L. And then we look down and we see the hirik, and it makes an E sound. E, like that, kind of an E. And so when you look at the next letter, it's a yod. There's no vowels surrounding it. So that means yod is acting as a vowel helper here. And we saw that previously of how yods can act as vowel helpers. So we go li, l, e, and we go li. Okay? So the yods here is acting as a vowel helper, hinting that there's an E sound underneath this lamed. And so we go tach, li, okay? And then we go to the next consonant. Well, again, I think I forgot to show there. We look down, we don't see any vowels here, which is why we know yod is acting as a vowel helper. So now we're going to look to the next consonant here, which is a tav. This is also a tav, just like that one. And it makes a t sound, like the letter T. And so we go tach, li, t, tach, li, t, tach, lit, and that's the word, tachlit. And that's how you pronounce the word. And this word means end, purpose, goal, or objective. Okay? So that's what this word means. And moving on to the next word, we are going to look at the first consonant. This is the letter mem. You don't know it yet. You haven't learned this. But it makes an M sound, which is why we transliterate it with an M. And it makes a m sound. And then we're going to look down and we see the segol. These three dots here is called a segol. And it makes an sound, which is why there's an E here. And then we're going to look over to the next letter, which is lamed, We saw that in the previous word, and lamed makes an l sound. And then we're going to look down. We see another segol, and it makes an sound, just like that one. So eh. And so when you combine the m sound with the you get m, eh. You get meh. And then when you combine the lamed with the sound, you go le, le. So you get meh, le. Okay, that's how you combine the sounds. And then we're going to look over to the next letter, and this is chaf sofit. Remember, it's the shape-shifting form. So chaf decided to shape-shift here at the end of the word. Well, he's always going to shape-shift at the end of the word anyway. So you go, that's the sound. And then we look over here inside, and we see that's the shiva. The shiva we saw before, those two dots. And it means the syllables closed. And this letter is not going to have any vowel sound attached to it. And it's going to make the sound. So when you see those two dots, if it's a silent shiva, you don't have to worry about this now, but you'll learn this later on when you have to do vowels. So when you see the chaf here at the end, and you see the shiva under it, it means that it's just going to make the sound of the chaf. So it's going to make a sound. So if you see how you take a look at these letters over here, the lamed, and then you have the vowel, you have to do the l and the you go le, and you get the sound. If there was another vowel here underneath, like a patach, and it made an sound, it would be la. You will combine the consonant sound with the vowel sound. But in this case here, because there isn't like a vowel like this is a silent shiva, saying that there's no vowel attached here to this letter. You just make the sound of the consonant. That's what it means. And so you go and that's the sound. So you go me, le, mele, melech, melech. And that's the word. You go me, le, melech. And melech means a king, sovereign, ruler, or a lord. And so it means like someone who's ruling a land. It's like a ruler or a king. So you get that idea. And that's how you can see how kaf, chaf, and chaf sofit are used in words. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at how to write the letter ka. And this is the one with the dot. So you start by going, it's just like a backward C essentially. So you go with a line on top here, and you go down, and then a line over. And then you put a dot right in the center over there, and that's kaf. That is the letter that makes the K sound. So when there's the dot there, it makes the K sound. K. And so that's how you write kaf, with the one that makes the K sound. And now we're going to take a look at the next one, which, oops, I just realized I already put the line down, but that's fine. So this is, you'll do the same thing as the previous one. Like this, you put the line here, then you go down, and then draw another line like this, making it backwards C. But I just realized I made a mistake here, and I put it with the dot. There should not be a dot there. Okay, anyways, never mind. So it's the same thing except without the dot. Do not put the dot right here. Don't put the dot when you're writing chaf. When you're doing the one with the sound, don't put the dot. Okay? Moving on to the next one, we have chaf sofit. And you can see here I put a line here, and the reason for that is because when you write this letter, you draw a line here, and then you draw a line going down, touching the red line. So in the previous one, we saw that it goes on this blue line, goes down, and then goes on to the next blue line. But this one extends down and goes all the way touching this red line, because this letter extends below the line, which is why you will see when you read some of the letters in Hebrew that this one will go a little bit below the other letters. So when you see the letters in Hebrew, it looks like they're all at the same level on a line, but this chaf will dip below the line. Okay, so that's how you write chaf sofit. Okay, now we're going to do a letter search, and it's the same thing like from Psalm 119, and you're going to see how many chafs and kafs and chaf sofits you can find. So if you can find one that makes a K sound, that's good. And if you can find one that makes a ch sound, and if you can find one that is a chaf sofit, then that's all that matters. So just find one of each. Okay? If you want to find more, you can always do that, but just try to find at least one of each. Okay? And what I'm going to do now is take away these vowels so it's a bit clearer for you to see the letters, and you can focus on the consonants. And then I'm going to highlight God's name in blue. You can see right there. So you know where his name is. Okay? And I'm going to put a timer up for 10 seconds. If you need more time, you can always pause the video and take as much time as you want. All right, so I'm going to put the timer up now and ready, set, go. And time's up. So these are all the letters that have been here. So over here we have a chaf. It makes a sound, so chaf, because there's no dot. Chaf didn't take his medicine. And then we have chaf sofit. It's at the end of a word. And here's what I meant when I said it dips below the line. So you can think of an imaginary line going through all the letters right here at the bottom. And you can see if I move my cursor like this over, you see it's crossing the chaf sofit here, and it's dipping below that line. And so a lot of the sofit letters will dip below the line, except for one letter. One letter will not do that, and you'll learn about that letter later on. But just keep in mind, this letter, it will dip below the line. Okay, now we're going to take a look at another one. And here, this one makes a K sound. K. So K. Why? Because it took its medicine. See the dagesh there? It took its medicine, so it's not going to make the sound. Doesn't have anything stuck in its throat. It makes a K sound. Nice and clean. And over here we have another final form letter or sofit letter. And another sofit letter, and then another one that over here makes the sound. Didn't take its medicine, so it's making a sound. And you have another one here, and another one that's a final form, and another one over here that's a final form. And then here's another one that didn't take its medicine, so it's making the sound. There's no dot, didn't take its medicine. And then we have another one here, which is a final form. Another sofit letter, and then we have one that did take its medicine, so it's going to make the K sound, K. So this is kaf. Kaf took his medicine. Over here is chaf, didn't take its medicine, and then we have another final form. And as you can see, the sounds are very common because this is making the sound, and whenever it's in the final form, it's going to make the sound. So you can see a lot of sounds, which is why you really need to practice the sound. So that's why I said if you master chet, you can make the sound, because even the chafs are going to be making those sounds. And so you should try your best to practice those sounds. And remember, don't force it. You'll hurt your throat. You don't want to hurt your throat, okay? So there are a total of 2 kafs, 2 that make the K sound, 3 that are in this form where it did not take its medicine, it doesn't have the dot, it's chaf, and then 9, which are chaf sofit. So you have 3 and 9 here. 3 plus 9 is 12. And so you got 12 sounds over here with just those letters in this passage, which means you should really work on your sounds if you want to get really good at Hebrew. Okay, so moving on from this lesson, what you should know. You should know the name of the letters. So kaf is the one with the dot. It makes a K sound, k. And chaf, you can see I wrote it with a K and a H. So chaf is this one, which did not take its medicine, so it's making the sound. And then the other one here is chaf sofit, which is this letter here. So this one, when it's in this form, when it changes form and it's shape shifting, it makes the sound. Okay, so the sounds, we already looked at that. K as in key and as in bach. And transliteration is either a K when it makes the K sound and KH when it makes a sound. Okay? And the type is, it's a consonant and it's part of the Begad Kafat club. That's what the K stands for in Begad Kafat. K stands for kaf, this one here. And it's letting you know that it makes the K and the sound. So also, this is not an official class. I made it up here. It's shape-shifting. I called it the shape-shifting club because it will shape-shift at the end of a word. I call it shape-shifting. It's not an actual term. Don't use it as a technical term. Okay, so that's what you should know moving forward from this lesson. And I will see you in the next lesson where you learn the letter Lamed. And don't forget to learn your letters by listening to the Aleph-Bet song that's linked in the description. Okay, so after every lesson, always listen to that song at least once. Okay, so until then, shalom and God bless, and I'll see you in the next lesson.